Hello everyone and welcome back to LewisFiction and welcome to my pitch for a Marvel Spider-Man 2 DLC. If you are new around the channel and you have not watched one of my videos before, then what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. We are pushing to 10,000 subscribers, and if you love Spider-Man, then this is the channel for you. But with that being said, let's get straight into the DLC. So I'm going to pitch 3 different DLCs for this game, similar to how it happened for the first Marvel Spider-Man game. However, unlike the first DLCs for the first game, these DLCs will be a little bit more disjointed and will kind of cover different aspects of loose ends that weren't tied up during Marvel Spider-Man 2. And the reason is, I feel like the first game's formula for the DLCs was good, but I think it would be a bit boring to sort of repeat it for Marvel Spider-Man 2, so a few of the things here and there I'm going to be going a little bit left field for, but I think you're still going to love it. Now, I know there has been leaks for the DLC for Marvel Spider-Man 2 from the new update, but I'm not planning to directly try and copy from them, although some elements may be similar. This video is a bit of fun and not outright a prediction video, so if I say something that doesn't line up with the leaks, then that's why. Either way, let's get into the first of the 3 DLCs, which of course will be none other than the Spider-Verse DLC. Now, this first DLC obviously won't be a single-player DLC. This will be a little bit of fun, and as we know, that Spider-Verse game was meant to be happening, got canned, so making it a DLC instead would be the next best step to give us some of the elements that the original Spider-Verse game would have given us. However, this won't be any old DLC, but this will in fact be a multiplayer DLC. It will be kind of like how GTA Online is an extension of GTA 5. This DLC will almost act as a Marvel Spider-Man 2 Online rather than a separate game that it was meant to be. Now, obviously, this doesn't follow the trend of the DLCs for the first game, as I mentioned in the intro, but I thought, why not spice it up and do something a little bit interesting instead of copying the same formula from the first game. This DLC would allow for a brand new mode in Marvel Spider-Man 2 to become accessible, which would allow you to play with maybe 3 to 8 other friends around New York City. I don't know how big the lobbies could be. As for the story and the missions, of course, they'd be pretty limited compared to the single-player DLCs, but I imagine they'd have you all working together to take out different crimes around the city and fight different villains. You could even have the Sinister Six be a main foe throughout the story, and since this mode would technically not be canon to the main story of the game, you could have a lot of leeway, like for example bringing back villains like Kraven, maybe doing some cool stuff with Venom and the Sinister Six, etc. Either way, I think this would be a fun DLC for Marvel Spider-Man 2, something a little different and non-conventional, but really fun nonetheless. The second part of the DLC for Marvel Spider-Man 2 would of course be back to single player and would start with Miles Morales as our main focus. Miles would be the main character of this second part of the DLC, and we're actually going to combine elements from his solo game into elements from Marvel Spider-Man 2 for the story. Essentially, for the story, it will start with some of the underground technology from Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales being stolen. Miles will become suspicious as reports start popping up throughout the city about the potential of the Tinkerer being back on the loose. And of course, this will bring memories of Finn back, and Miles will have to deal with that in the back of his mind throughout this short story, and will even consult Peter for advice during this time. However, when Peter asks Miles if he needs help, Miles will say that he needs to do this on his own and will get the encouragement from Peter to do so. Miles will say since it involves the Tinkerer and it involves the Underground and Finn, he needs to do this himself because it's personal to him. Peter respects this as Miles goes on his way. As groups of underground-looking soldiers start popping up around the city, Miles starts to consider the prospect that Finn may actually be alive. He doesn't know how, but she could be. However, this theory is then torn down when Miles encounters the leader of the new underground group, who goes by the name of the Beetle. The Beetle had used the underground tech to forge it into something new and more powerful, and that is how the Beetle obviously gets his armor and all of his technology. After the first battle, Miles goes on a mission to uncover the motive of the Beetle and what their grand scheme is. Eventually, Miles uncovers that the Beetle wasn't just any ordinary thug looking to rob banks and cause havoc throughout New York City. It was actually a man called Abner Jenkins, a former mercenary who had been hired by an unknown buyer to find and steal the symbiote. Miles will be confused at first until he brings it up to Peter in which Peter will say that he has something to tell Miles, and that will bring us on to our third DLC. The third part of this DLC opens with Miles and Peter discussing. Peter will go on to tell Miles about everything that happened during his encounter with the Flame and everything going on with Wraith. He'll tell him about how the Flame destroyed and planned to steal some of the symbiote, which was actually out for testing way before the final version was used on Harry, was actually stolen by the Flame. Peter reveals that he's actually been working alongside Mary Jane to try and track him down for a while. And this is when we switch to Peter as the main character for this DLC. Peter reveals that the last few months, nothing has really popped up, but he's waiting for something to happen. He says that this man is a very, very hard man to catch. Miles passes on all the information that he has learned during his mission to uncover the secrets of the Beetle, and reveals that the Beetle may have something to do with this brand new symbiote and the Flame. Peter will ask to talk to Abner himself, and Miles will grant him permission. Peter goes and talks with him and deduces that the secret buyer who hired out Abner in the first place was Norman Osborn to go after the Flame after learning that some of the symbiote still existed, as Harry is still dying. Peter is once again put in the same conundrum that he is at the end of the game, saying that he needs to go and get it first before there is a citywide emergency again. The last thing that Peter wants to happen is another symbiote city situation. But obviously Peter once again is fighting his inner urge to help Harry Osborn, as he knows his best friend is still dying. Using clues, Peter and Miles both track down the Flame, as reports throughout the city start to rise of a symbiote monster once again. Peter thinks this couldn't be good. During this time, Wraith is also in on the mission, and she has a big falling out with Peter, saying that all of this could have been avoided if he let her kill the Flame while she still had the chance, and now look at what's happened. Peter feels regret, but knows that it was never the right decision. They can't fight now. They have to stick together so they can eventually take down the Flame. This obviously leads to a massive fight and boss battle with none other than Carnage. I also imagine that this DLC will lean more into the horror aspect of the symbiote more than anything. I think given the tone of Marvel's Spider-Man and the way that they handled Cletus's character in the side mission at the end of the game, it would be cool to make Carnage a very sadistic horror-like character. As Yuri mentioned at the end of the side mission, the Flame work from the shadows, and it would be really cool to see Carnage literally embody that as a villain. It would require a special type of skill to beat him, which would also differentiate him from Venom, Scream, and a bunch of the other symbiotes that we fought during Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Either way, the DLC will end with Carnage being defeated, and we will cut to one final time to Norman Osborn during the end of the DLC, where he will learn that Abner failed, and the last remnants of the symbiote were destroyed by Spider-Man. This will lead him further down the path of hating Spider-Man, setting him up primarily for Marvel's Spider-Man 3, ready to become the Green Goblin. And that's where I would end the story of the third part of the DLC, and the DLCs for Marvel Spider-Man 2 as a whole. Thank you very much for watching my pitch for DLCs for Marvel Spider-Man 2. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like on this video. Also, comment down below what you would do with the DLCs for Marvel Spider-Man 2. Would you do something similar? Would you do something different? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, then you'll enjoy my video on a potential Marvel Spider-Man Origins game, which you can watch on the left-hand side of the screen, and on the right-hand side of the screen, you can watch my pitch for a Spider-Man Cinematic Universe. With that being said, thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care, and keep writing stories.